Hey Amarillo, I'm Jason Boyette, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. This episode of Hey Amarillo is supported by Amarillo Habitat for Humanity, which is making a lasting difference by partnering with local families to build and purchase affordable homes. This year, during the Panhandle Gives, which is happening right now through December 3rd, your donations will be amplified, maximizing your impact. With your support, Habitat not only builds homes, but also empowers families to become confident, successful homeowners. Together, we can build hope and brighter futures for our neighbors. So make an impact, change a life, build a home, and support Amarillo Habitat for Humanity during the Panhandle Gives. Go to thepanhandlegives.org, search for Amarillo Habitat to make your donation. Today's guest is Lora Brown. Lora is the owner and a master stylist at The Salon by Lora Brown. She started her career when she was just 17 years old. She opened her first salon in 1996, and now she has nearly 40 years of experience in her industry. Her salon won a Business Excellence Award from the Chamber of Commerce a few years ago. It's been featured in our magazine, Brick and Elm, and Lora runs an online training program called The Total Stylist. So, as you can probably see, she's an entrepreneur and she comes from a family of entrepreneurs. And so we talk about that. We talk about how she built her career, about being a woman in business, and why she loves helping others reach their potential. Here's Lora Brown. Lora Brown, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Jason, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good. I'm glad you're excited. I'm honored to have you. We've known each other for a few years, but I want to start with you the same way I start with most of my guests, and that's just to ask you why you're here in Amarillo. So what brought you to this area in the first place?
I was born and raised in Amarillo.
Okay.
So my parents, originally came here. We're driving here. It's like my stomping grounds over here in Puckett. So
do you know why your parents ended up here?
My dad was an attorney, so after law school, they ended up moving here. Went to college in Colorado, so they moved here. My dad was an attorney, got a job here. Mom started Dutch Girl Cleaners.
Okay.
So I come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Got it.
His dad has had his own business as well and was an entrepreneur, so just a long line of everybody owning their own business and workers.
If you grew up here, where did you go to school?
So I went to Amarillo High.
Okay. And after Amarillo High, did you have a sense of what was going to come next for you? Like, did you have a plan? Did you want to go to college? Like, what did that look like back then?
So my plan was not to go to college.
Okay.
Being from a family that all of the kids, there's 4 of us and I'm the baby. And so my dad was not very happy that I wasn't going to go to college, but I did take cosmetology back in high school. That's when they had it for 2 years. So I took that program, and I can't say I had an aha moment of I want to do hair for a living, but it's just something I really wanted to be creative. I definitely struggled in school, now knowing I was dyslexic, and I didn't really realize that. That's before all the testing came out. So it's just something that I really had a passion for. And I knew that because my family owned their own business, I really wanted to own mine one day. Growing up in that industry, it just kind of made me want to do something outside of the box that my family hadn't done.
Okay. Did you have a creative upbringing or some sort of artistic talent? Like, was that a part of who you are back then?
I have no artistic talent. I laugh because my handwriting looks like, a doctor's. You can't even read it. I can hardly read it myself. I can barely draw a stick figure, I say. But no, my mom did a lot of artwork herself. She was very creative that way as well. So she did a lot of pottery. She did art. We grew up Church of Christ. So she did a lot of the arts and crafts with the kids and things like that. So probably I get that from her.
Okay. You knew, though, not only that you wanted to go into cosmetology, but also that you wanted to be on, I guess, the ownership side of things. Like, you didn't just want to work for somebody else. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
What was your plan then? Like, if that was the goal, as far back as high school, did you script it out in some way and say, by this age, I want to be doing this?
Well, of course, at 17, I thought I knew everything when I graduated. And I thought, well, I'm going to get my cosmetology degree, and I'm going to move out of Amarillo. And then I'm laughing to myself because my parents set me up for 6 months in an apartment, and then I was on my own. And I thought, looking back, how in the world did I think I was going to move to Dallas or to a big city and be able to do it? All I knew is I did not want to go back home. Failure was not an option for me. And so they set me up 6 months, and I worked really hard as an assistant underneath a very well-known stylist at the time. And I just really absorbed everything she could teach me. And so I really, at that point, I knew that that's really what I wanted to do. And like I said, my parents weren't super happy I was going to go to college. At that time. They wanted me to go to ACU, and it was just not something I really wanted to do. So I really didn't have a whole lot of options. So my option was to succeed.
Okay. Tell me what that path looked like then. So like how long were you working, for somebody else? When did you start to take other steps?
Yeah. So I assisted, right when I came out of high school, I assisted a lady named Joanne Page at Scruples. And so I assisted her for 2 years. And then after that, I went out and booth rented on my own. And so I did that for 10 years, knowing that I really wanted to still get on the path of owning my own business. And so I really just grew my clientele within that 10-year time frame. And then I decided to open up my own salon. And so I did that. And that was a booth rental salon. And realized that I was pregnant with my daughter.
At the same time you opened your own.
And anyways, my poor clients, I was sick all day, all night, but they buried, they really hung in there with me, and, I made it through that. But I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. We dumped every penny that we had, my husband and I, into our business. And so it's just something that I wanted to do. And so there again, I'm at the face of like, oh my gosh, this has to work.
Right.
And so, once I had her, then, we hit the ground running. But
let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the industry itself, because I think a lot of people may not realize, you mentioned the booth rental, that for a lot of people getting into the industry, there's someone who owns a salon, and then they allow you to rent space in that salon, and then you start serving your customers. And you did that for 10 years. And how did you spend that 10 years? Were you thinking, okay, I'm going to build up a base of loyal clients, and then eventually I'll be able to step away and start my own salon? Because 10 years, that feels like a long time to be in pursuit of that kind of a goal.
Yeah, so really it's the sad thing with our industry, and mind you, I came out of high school, and I don't really think it's changed a whole lot of the business strategy behind it. So they teach you to pass the test. They teach you to give you some skills. There's no business skills to it. There's no really map of, this is what it takes to run a business.
Yeah, you learn to cut and style hair, not to do the back end stuff.
Yes, so I learned how to cut and style hair. I really learned a lot from Joanne, who did own her own business with Ray Strickland at the time. And so I really just observed and mimicked a lot of what she did and how she ran her business. Within that time frame, after I assisted her, I did a lot of education. I spent hours. I mean, I would always say I live, eat, breathe hair. I probably still do. That's about my life, which, I would read every publication I could. There were very few videos back then, but I would go to hair shows. I'd go to New York. I'd go anywhere I could to learn as much as I possibly could. So I would do a lot of hands-on. I do business courses, anything I could do to better myself. I'd read books, self-help books, business books, anything I could to gather that information while I was growing a clientele. And listen, there wasn't a roadmap back then. There's a lot of, what I learned from the lady I worked for underneath to what I would possibly do different. But she did, to this day, I give her credit. She taught me a lot about business and what they did and how they ran it. And I really just tried to mimic, because she was very successful at the time.
What year did you open your own salon?
That was in 97.
Okay. How did you know it was time? Were you waiting to get a certain number of clients or something like that? Was there an economic figure that you were trying to attach it to?
So I would say I jumped several different salons, which most booth renters do.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah. And so I just knew it seemed like everywhere I went, at that point, I was just renting one chair, and then I would be renting two chairs at a booth rent. And so I just really had a hard time, and I do still think this can exist, of really, it's a really dog eat dog industry. And it's hard to find people that you can come together as a team as a booth renter. So I just knew that I wanted to do something different. I knew that I wanted to have my own from the beginning. I just really didn't know what it would look like. I just wanted things to always be better. I learned from each business that I was in, like, okay, this was good, this was not good. This is what I would take, this is what I would not take. So I really just took as much skill and knowledge from each business I was in, and the people that I worked with, and the things that people I want to be around, people I don't want to be around.
Yeah. What your salon is now, was it fully formed when you opened it, or did it sort of evolve over the years?
So that's the funny thing. The first salon that I had, it was like it's like that baseball movie. If you build it, they'll come. That's what I thought. If you build it, they'll come. Well, it did not.
Did you actually build?
Oh,
or did you just find it? And
so the building I'm in now, I have my dad's office was up front, and we took over the building in the back. So I renovated it, added on to it, and then built it with the mindset, I'll build it. This will be so amazing, so different than anything else, that people will come. Well, talk about naive. That was not how it happened. So it was a lot of really just working the system, asking people, trying to find people to come and rent from me. And that's basically how it took off. So that was not easy in the beginning. And then you typically hairdressers move together. It's not usually one who comes. And so I was never big on calling other salons and trying to so-called steal other people.
Right.
I'd never felt right about that. I really wanted people to come to work for me that really wanted to be working with me. I didn't ever feel like, I've never felt right about undercutting someone.
How long, you said it was a rocky start. How long until you, you're laughing at me. How long until you felt like...
Anytime you own your own business, it's rough.
I mean, rocky start, rocky end, rocky middle. But how long did it take you until you felt established, like, okay, this is going to work? I'm not hanging on by the skin of my teeth.
I was established, all of my chairs were rented out. As a matter of fact, I had people that were working with me that they took a lot of my overflow. So I knew when I opened my salon that I had to generate enough income to be able to cover the overhead of everything. Because if I had a walkout, which you typically can hear that at some point, then I needed to know that I could still cover the bills, pay the rent, and be able to manage everything. So I knew that from the beginning. But the salon was full. I had intentions. My parents had talked about when my dad retired that I would end up taking over that front building as well. Then my parents, short story, got a divorce, and they ended up with things that the opposite wanted. So I was actually at a hair show, and because the roles had changed, it was hard for my dad to pay me rent instead of it being the other way around, because my mother now owned the building. So it was causing a little conflict. So when I went to the hair show, I just said, listen, I want to have a relationship with you. If you don't want to pay me rent, I can understand. Well, I came back and they had moved out. So it was he and my uncle and my husband. So again, I thought, okay, you're going to give me lemons. I'm going to make lemonade out of that. And so originally I thought I wanted to do a spa. And then I thought to myself, what in the world am I doing? Why am I stepping into a box that I am not familiar with? Just stay in your own lane.
Right.
And so,
keep doing what you're good at.
Yeah. So I gutted that building. And that really motivated me. I felt like it was a God thing too, because I just came out of a Reckon symposium and was just there with one of the guys that had built salons. And I really had bought his book, took his course, and I really just focused on what he said and read it like a Bible and started tearing out. And so we opened that one with the intent that that would be a higher end salon. My back salon would be more of a homey feel, because that's what it was. And so they had the choice to either, move up front, pay a little bit higher rent, or stay in the back. So that's when I came to having two salons.
Okay. Is that something that I guess the marketplace wants? There's some who want that personal relationship with you. I just want you to cut my hair. You've done it for years and years. And others who want like a more high-end feel, a more luxurious feel. Is that still a model?
Yeah, so I'd say that's a two-folded question.
Okay.
So I've learned a lot over the years.
And clearly I don't know anything about this world, so.
I could write a book.
You should.
But my personal opinion is I think it is important that the owner stays in the building, because every time I would go back to my back building just to, check on them, they felt like they were the stepchildren. They didn't feel.
Okay.
And looking back, hindsight, I'm like, well, I was the leader, I'm the owner, and it would be hard if the owner just is like, hey, I'm leaving this part of the building. I'm right in the back, front parking lot if you need me. And so the momentum left. So with that being said, I do think the client really loved. I did a huge open house. I actually invited a lot of the other salons with hope to be able to get owners together or business-minded people. It didn't matter, just to have a community together, because it is a very competitive, unique industry, I believe. So I do think the clients loved it. I still get things like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in New York. This is amazing. And I've been in this building now for going on 18 years. So I built that with the mindset that it is a spa-like feel. It is nicer, so with clients absolutely wanted that. The problem I had, and I didn't foresee, is that my stylist in the back ended up leaving.
Okay.
So with that being said, it was a complete, pretty much walk out of the back, which I was surprised. So fast forward all the years of all the failures, now I'm like embracing failures more now. Where before I was like, well, everything's my fault. It's my fault. I've done a lot of research, mentally, getting into that. And I'm just realizing that, that's my discernment. I don't have high discernment in this working genius that we work through. I have it, but it's my weak point. It's because I always want to think the best in everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
And so with that being said, I was never good at, I'm always trying to spin the plates. What could I do better and all? Now I'm just accepting sometimes it's not always about me. It might be different situations of why they left.
Yeah.
So now it's a much better reciprocant of failure, so then I can learn from that, and instead of it really knocking me down for a bit, being able to gain from it quicker and start changing what needs to be changed.
Okay, tell me about I guess the state of your salon now. Is it still a rent space to be on your team, or do you have employees?
Okay, so the space now is, originally when we moved up front, we were commission and booth.
Okay.
And at this conference, they did tell me that there's no way that you can have both. And I thought, no, I think you can. Well, you can't, because there it is. It is hard because you're self-employed, and then you have people who work for you that work part of a team. And it's very hard for the people who aren't really team-minded to work in a team. So we are now currently, and we went through many years of that. And then finally, as my last booth renter offboarded, I'm like, no, we're going to go straight commission.
Okay.
Because there again, I want to have a team that we all work together. We're all on the same page. We do that together. So we are a commission salon.
And one of the things I know about you is that you still are very, you prioritize education. You want your stylists to always be learning, to always be growing. You bring in celebrity stylists to come and teach them techniques and things like that. And I wonder if you can talk about why you do that. I mean, obviously, there's a competitive aspect. If you want to be a high-end salon, you have to know how to do the cuts that people see. But what's the business concept behind that? Why do you do that?
So education is important for everyone. It's important for the customer. It's important for the stylist. I've always said, if you think you know everything, then you might as well throw in the towel, because you'll never stop learning. So I think it's always important to continue education, even when we have schools that come in and look at the salon, or we give a tour to every new client that comes in. And that is what they say a lot of times, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea you do education. As a matter of fact, I just, had a conversation with a client, and she's like, that's why I choose your salon, because you spend so much time teaching and educating, and that's why you do things different. And that's why it's always different from other salons, or the experiences that she's had, I should say. And she said, it's just different. You do things different. And so with that being said, even anyone who does come in my salon, typically I put them through a program. They could be a little bit of a stylist that's a little bit of a seasoned stylist, but I want to make sure that they know and have all the tools in the toolbox so they can be successful. Then I become your coach and I'm by your side to help you, and I'm your security blanket. So we can do things together. I'm always there to help if it's formulating or cutting or, suggestions. So I want to first give you all the tools in the toolbox. So then when you go behind the chair, you have the confidence to know how to talk to the customer, how to converse, how to do the things that technique wise that you need to do, and just all the touch points that we do to make sure that you're successful and that they want to build a relationship with you and come back. And a lot of it, you have to care. You have to care about people.
Are you still cutting hair?
I do.
Okay, so you're not just running the business or managing employees. You've got scissors in your hand.
Oh yeah, I love that part of it. Absolutely, for sure. But so really on the weekend, I do the business part of it, and during the week, I'm with the stylist. So at some point in the future, I would like to continue. We really have had several stylists off board lately. We're revamping and working a process called EOS, and that's Entrepreneurial Operations Systems. So it is a real detailed scorecard where everybody's on the same page. You work together as a team. So, the front, basically like the front of the house knows what the back of house is doing, the middle person. So we're all speaking the same language and we all work together. And so that's been a lot of extra work we've put into it. We have an hour and a half meeting every morning, starting at 7 on Fridays before we even start our day. So it's a lot of really trying to really dig deep into all of the business part of it, the systems and really numbers and, how to be successful and really letting everyone know across the board. Yeah. So we're all speaking the same language.
Which sort of changes the mindset from the booth rental sort of thing where you're just in it. Yeah, I'm going to make my money with my customers. And this way, like everybody's invested in what you're doing.
Yeah. So that's going to make a difference, which is very hard because in this area, I want to say now there may be 3 commission salons.
That's
Majority are booth rent.
Okay.
And just as I was speaking with someone the other day, they're like, I don't want to babysit. That's why I'm a booth renter. And for me, in the conversation that I had was that I've been doing this, oh my gosh, since I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I could say I've been successful. I could punch my ticket. I could, close my doors, be done with that. But for me, I was listening to a podcast the other day as well. It's like in the beginning, you're growing your business. In the middle, you're kind of sustaining and you're kind of in that sweet spot where you're at. In my point in my life, I'm really been doing it for so long. I'm really ready to teach and pass this on. I want to make a difference in the industry. I want to leave something behind. I don't want to just be like, yeah, I'm successful. I could close my doors, but like the stylist that comes to my mind. I mean, she has grown exponentially in a year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if everybody could see what you could do. I mean, I could take somebody from out of school with no tools and get them to where they are with you. I mean, it's just, that's what makes me happy. It's like seeing these people just really evolve. And then not only is she understanding just the hair, she knows how to run a business. She knows what it takes. I mean, and just really teaching, giving them all the tools I can give them. So it's not just the cutting. I teach you business. I teach you cutting. I get involved. We do future boards. I mean, we really go all in with our staff and our team.
You've been doing it so long that you've seen the industry change a lot.
Oh yeah.
I want to talk about some of the ways it's changed because this is my understanding from an outsider. It used to be people would bring in a magazine and say, I want my hair cut like this person, this celebrity. Well, now there's tutorials on TikTok on how to style your hair this way. And so I feel like maybe your customers are more educated on what they want and some of the ways to do it. And that puts a lot of pressure on you to fulfill what they think they know. So tell me about those kinds of changes and how your job is different now than it used to be.
So I would say it's really good that they are much more educated instead of just, here's a picture and this is what I want to do. They know the language now, so you definitely have to know the industry. So that's what makes it nice is they at least have an understanding. I would probably say with the TikTok and everything that they're seeing. They're not, I'll give an example of a client who wanted to go gray with me. So, brings me in a picture or video of, this guy that's doing it in California, and this is what she wants, but doesn't really understand the process and everything that it takes you through. So they can bring in a video, or this is what the beginning and the end looks like. But all the details in between is what you really have to take the time and explain, and all the steps that you have to do. And if you follow all these steps, you too can get to the end of this. So sometimes
it's not quite as simple as it looks
and
on
then it can be bad.
Yeah.
But it was kind of interesting. I was, again, listening to, I'm a member of Thriver Society, which is someone in our industry. But that's what she was saying, that a lot of these people now, that's what's coming down the pipe, is everything on Instagram, social media part is, that's probably going to be shifting, because anyone can put out anything they want. And really, there's not, people are booking online now. So there's a lot of unknown factors that go into it, of how much years experience they have. They don't have a salon. They're just working off their social media. Some people are making deposits of appointments, and then they're not keeping them. And I mean, it's kind of crazy. So now the shift is going back to, having Google reviews and really having a business where there are some facts behind that people are doing the research on. So it's shifting again. And it's funny, because when I started her program, it was all social media, and now it's shifting back. And it's just like with COVID, everybody came out, and we were sitting in a sweet spot. Everybody wanted their hair done again. It's so great. It's wonderful. Well, now a lot of those people, they thought, well, I want to go and do my own. Well, now they're realizing, this is a lot harder than what I thought it would be. And so now they're wanting to shift back into possibly doing more, booth or commission, or not owning their own.
Yeah.
Because the suite, owning their own business in their suite, but they didn't really understand all of the logistics of that.
You've been a woman in business, owning your own salon, for more than 2 decades now, and this is a.
I'm young still.
No, I'm still young. Right?
Not mine.
Well, we both are, but like this is a part of the country that hasn't always had a lot of women in an entrepreneurial role. And if, with you starting this in the 90s, like you might have been a little bit of a pioneer in that world. And I wonder how you think about that, how you've seen it grow, not just in your industry, but across a bunch of other industries.
No, you're right about that. I would agree. I still, which some people are not going to like me saying this, I still feel like it can be the man's world. I do think it's harder for women. I do think we get labeled a lot easier, because some of the things, if I'm a savvy business owner, if I was a man, it would be, oh yeah, he's very good at business. As a female, you can be labeled still, I think.
Yeah.
So, which that's sad. I don't know if that'll ever switch, but hindsight, I'm so busy running my own race. I don't really listen to a lot of the noise outside. I just know, I'll say Michelle. I mean, and I connect with a lot of business owners that sit in my chair or that I do with, because you really understand what you have to do, and you really value each other. And, when I see her, it's just like, oh, this lost soul, like, oh my God, it's so good to see you, just because, I appreciate what she does, and she appreciates what I do. And same thing with you. I mean, you just really value others when you know what they're doing and continuing to grow and be better. And you guys are a perfect example of, rug kind of being pulled out from underneath you. And here you are, you're just gang busting it out. I mean, I love it.
Well, thank you.
And that's what makes it exciting, is you see people that are really, putting the work to it, and that you value that. You want to support that.
Do you feel like this is a good place to own your own business, to take that entrepreneurial leap and find success?
I would say Amarillo it's been very good to me. I have clients. My very first client, Tawana Powell. I mean, she's been with me from literally day one.
From the beginning?
She was my first client, even when her husband, Don, worked for President Bush, and then came back. I mean, she would still fly back to get her hair done. So he's the one who helped me with my back business. He's the one I said, how did you even do that? I had nothing. I had not a pot to piss in. And he knew. He said, I just knew you had it.
Well, if you could talk to the FDIC chairman and get tips on running a
Oh
business.
my
That
gosh.
seems like a pretty good
if he
resource.
would stay, it would. You try to talk to him, and he's like in and out, in and out. You just have to know him. But I'm just so grateful for those people, because if I wasn't living here and I was in a big city, that probably would have never happened. And if I didn't have, that's what I love about Amarillo, is that there's some really good people here. And I've been very, very fortunate to have those people sit in my chair, even if it's not been for the entire time. I've had some great relationships, and they're just some wonderful people. And it has been amazing to me.
This week's episode is supported by Amarillo Angels, an organization you've heard guests mention and recommend several times on this show. This week, as I've mentioned before, marks the start of the Panhandle Gives. It lasts through December 3rd, and Amarillo Angels needs your support. Your donations help them continue the work of walking alongside children, youth, and families experiencing foster care. Every dollar given between now and December 3rd will be amplified through this campaign. You can financially support Amarillo Angels by visiting thepanhandlegives.org, searching for Amarillo Angels, and making your donation. Together, we can create a brighter future for every child in foster care. Again, I hope you'll participate in the Panhandle Gives, and when you do, support Amarillo Angels. Okay, I'm back with Lora Brown. Lora, this is part of the show I call 8 Straight. 8 Straight is sponsored every week by Panhandle Plains Historical Museum in Canyon. It's the largest history museum in Texas, and its collection includes a locally owned mahjong set, possibly dating back to the 1980s, which was long before mahjong was becoming popular in the Panhandle like it is now. You can see that or learn more at panhandleplains.org. Okay, when you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, what do you hope for?
I would really hope that the city would continue to grow. So, like driving over here, I'm like, I remember when we were the first street in Puckett, and look how far it's come. And so I really would like to see it to continue to grow. I know there's been some issues in our city council right now. I just wish people would come together, and I wish that you would, you can agree to disagree, or let's move forward. And that's what I would hope for, is that, we could have a place for concerts, and we could continue to grow this city. And we've done great so far. I just don't want to go backwards. Sometimes if you're taking a big picture of the city and where we were so many years ago, let's just say 20 years, and you take those businesses away, where would we be? So I'll visually see 20 years from now or 10 years from now, all these other things coming into the city. I remember that Canyon used to be so far away, and now everything's coming together. It's amazing how this has grown, and the cities are coming together, and that's what's fun. That's what's exciting, because you're like, wow, there really wasn't that much when I was first here.
I feel like there's some people who, like you, really want the city to grow. There are other people who don't want it to grow too fast, as if we need to stay the same for a while. And I always feel like, man, if you're not growing, like you're in the process of dying,
Because, you're always moving. You're moving forward or you're moving backwards. You're never sitting still. So for me personally, if that's what they're saying, for me personally, you're never sitting still. So it's one way or the other. Either you're behind or you're going to stay ahead.
Yeah. Other than wind, which I'm sure something you think about as a hairstylist, you don't want to do something nice and then walk outside on a windy day.
So true.
Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
I would say dirt. It's too dusty.
Yeah. Well, it's wind related.
I know. But with that dirt, if we had a little bit more greenery, more trees, we had more rain, then it wouldn't be so bad. But no, even when it's hot, boy, you're sure glad. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad it's windy. What I do love is you get all the seasons here.
Yeah.
It can't be any more spectacular coming over here and seeing all the trees. Literally, I'm like, I'm going to get out of my car. I'm going to take a picture of that tree before I get to your house, because it's just beautiful.
Fall is probably the best season in the Panhandle.
I would agree.
What does this area not have enough of?
I would probably say trees. Because even when you're flying in from Amarillo, okay, it's flat. This is where we are. But, when you get to another area with the trees, and it's spectacular, especially this time of year, when you're not really in certain areas, and then you are where the establishment has been here for years. then it just is like, wow, and because every time I see a tree, I'm like, oh, what color could I make that? How can I make that into hair? You just
You get inspiration
oh my
from
gosh, I'm like,
trees.
if I could take a leaf and
That's
how
funny.
would you make that? So color, I love seeing the color.
Okay. What's your favorite local neighborhood?
I have to say it's mine. It's Wolfland. I love every house is a little different. When you walk, the brick streets, the trees again. I just think it's not cookie cutter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably what I like the most is it's unique. Every house is different.
Okay. What's your favorite local restaurant?
So for the view, I would probably say the Amarillo Club.
Yeah.
Hands down.
You can't beat
It
that.
is spectacular. Their bar is beautiful. Food-wise, I'd probably say Metropolitan is probably my favorite restaurant.
Okay. What's your favorite local nonprofit?
I can't say it's local, but it's Reaching Souls is going to be probably my favorite nonprofit. I think they've done more with very little. Basically, it started, Africa. They give them a bike. They give them a speaker, and they go and reach. Their goal is that'd be like Amarillo people reaching Amarillo people. So African people reaching African.
So instead of like a mission group coming from Amarillo to
Exactly.
Africa, you've got people who live in Africa actually doing.
So that's their mission, is to try to take the people within where they live so that they can relate to them better. And then reach other people. And I was just looking up, they've saved 125 million lives have been turned over to Christ, and they have 2,500 missionaries. So they've built 71,000 churches planted. And I think it's minimal. I want to say it's to save a soul is like $10 or something. There's very little money that goes into that. And Africa, you can imagine. It's nothing like what we have. You think we're wealthy, all of us, compared to that.
Yeah.
But I think that I think to myself, God, how hard that would be to get on the bike. That's never been I could never do that. That's probably another reason. Get on the bike. You just, you get up at 5 a.m. and you're riding your bike on a speaker and you talk to people about Christ all day. I'm like that. That is definitely me stepping outside of my box. So I'm good about. I like to help.
So if anybody sees you on a bike here in Amarillo,
then now I like to ride bikes, but that way it would be. So that's me.
What's the most underrated aspect of living here?
I'd probably say the people. I've heard more people, and I agree, when they've come here, let's say California, or especially after COVID, and I think a lot of people everybody is so friendly here. Everybody is so kind, and they really care. I've never had anybody such great hospitality, and people really go out of their way. And since I've lived here my whole life, there's sometimes I'm like, I don't know, but they're right. You go to other places and they're not opening the door for you.
Right.
They're not as polite. New York, I remember going to a hair show. I was like, nobody even talks to you. It's like nobody even pays attention. Now, I would say it's better since 9/11. I definitely did see a shift. But, people are so into their headphones and not paying attention and don't want to look, and I really think we have some good people.
You get used to it here, and then you leave here and you realize, oh, this is not how it is everywhere.
Have you lived elsewhere?
I haven't.
Okay.
But I've traveled enough to know, that's the norm of personal interaction here in Amarillo is not the norm once you leave here. Making eye contact, speaking to people, saying hi. If you pass somebody in a grocery aisle. Yeah. That's
the thing, because people are just, I don't know, you're just kind. Just to give a smile. Hi, hello. So I agree.
Okay, when was the last time you visited Paladuro Canyon?
Oh my gosh, you're going to laugh at this one. So it's probably been 20 years.
Really?
When my husband and I riding bikes with a friend of ours. So yes, is that awful? As I sit here looking at your picture, and I have one in my home too, I'm like, it's horrible. I need to go, but it's one of those things you're like, oh, I'll do that. And then you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're probably better at it than me.
I
do think
I try to go often enough. Yeah, I do like to hike.
Yes.
And I like to hike in pretty places.
And it is
And
that.
if you want that in the Texas Panhandle, like that's where you go. So
It is that.
okay, so that concludes our 8 straight questions. I like to close by asking my guests to endorse something. So what's one thing you would like listeners to know about or to experience?
Honestly, I would probably just say to stay together. I mean, support each other, support local businesses. I think it's important that in a world today with Amazon is everything, a click, I think it's really important to do business with local people, to support them, to let them know how much you appreciate them having a business. I think about Marcella Furge. I went to school with her and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's closing after all these years.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, oh, it's so sad because, she's been such a huge part of the business. And there's other businesses that have closed lately, or when doctors have been and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like a changing of the guards, And so you're like, and I know everything comes to an end, but with not somebody taking over and continuing the business. So just I was reading something on her Facebook page about somebody, she, how many generations she had touched. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is so true. It'd be the same kind of thing with me as well. So yeah, just to support each other and support those local businesses because, without them, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yeah.
Without them, I mean, like your magazine and helping support and, just lean into each other. And so what if it takes you 10 minutes to drive to the store, or it takes you a little more time than going online and clicking a button and getting it delivered to your house?
Yeah. Okay, I agree. Lora Brown, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And that concludes the episode. I want to say thanks to Lora for the interview. You can learn more about her business at thesalonbylorabrown.com. Thanks also to Amarillo Habitat for Humanity, Amarillo Angels, and Panhandle Plains Historical Museum for supporting this podcast, and to Angelina Marie for editing every week. And I really do want to remind you to give this week during the Panhandle Gives. Give to Amarillo Angels, to Amarillo Habitat, or to any one of the hundreds of other nonprofits who are participating in this campaign. It's just such a great event. It's so helpful for these nonprofits, so I encourage you to give. Thank you for listening. Hey Amarillo exists on a weekly basis because of listeners like you and the local people who support it financially through patreon.com/HeyAmarillo. Hey Amarillo's executive producers include Josh Wood, Wes Reeves, Cindy Graham, Barbara and Jim Witten, Corey Burns, Jason Burr, Katie Linger, and Patrick Burns. This has been episode 380. My name is Jason Boyette, and I'll see you next week.